Hi, it's here, viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for calling us your time this evening for the news. It's 6 p.m. by 6 o'clock to begin right away with our major stories. A 33-year-old boy has been stabbed to death at the Non-Glacé neighborhood here in Douala, and the locals say insecurity has always been on the rise at Newtown Airport. And also in this newscast, international relations experts will be explaining or reacting on the chasing away of some Cameroonians forcefully from Equatorial Guinea. Stay with us for those details and more. And insecurity is said to be on the rise in most neighborhoods in the economic capital, Douala. At Non-Glacé neighborhood here in Douala, a young guy of about 33 years old was stabbed to death by a neighbor. Our reporter, Lucy Liengu Etie, made a stopover at the place where the incident took place, and she now recounts.
Circumstance, light of blood. According to eyewitnesses, Eben was stabbed by his neighbor Clinton in an attempt to bring peace between the latter and his mother.
The boy is in habit of always fighting with the mother, and now when this man now saw the act, which to him he's somebody that do not like such things. He's like really a peaceful somebody. So when he sees that guy was fighting with the mother, he went now to like separate and like keep peace. So now when that happened, he came now to carry water from this well. So when he now was drawing water, that guy surprised him with a knife. And when he was about to like block, that's how the knife caught him right in the chest, and he died right to place here before he was taken to the hospital.
Yes, I want to just say I know a little bit about this child as a good child. He's an exemplary to us as a child in the quarter. As you can hear what they have just said is because he said to a friend that you should not talk to your mother in such a manner, because it is not good to talk to your mother in such a manner. That is when he was carrying water with a knife.
The population of Quartier Non-Glacé say it is not the first time the alleged killer is committing such an act.
Yes, when we come from the hospital, when we put Ebe in the mortuary, when we were in the chef de quartier, the father, when they finish from there, the father of that child come and say that this is not the first time that child is killing people. This is going to the second or the third time. Even the village people say that is true. That is what the child is always doing. But the people that went to that house, I hear that they see many identity card of people that have picked inside the house. That it means the child is aggressor.
On hearing the unfortunate incident, an angry mob burns down the house of the alleged killer. Inhabitants of Quartier Non-Glacé say they go to bed in fear, and waking up in the morning, according to them, is by the grace of God. The lifeless body of Eben was taken to the Lakentini Hospital in Douala. The alleged killer, according to sources, is in the hands of security forces, while investigations have been opened.
And inhabitants of Sobom is a locality in the Douala 3 subdivision, are complaining that the quarter is filthy and the people are exposed to waterborne diseases such as cholera. They also complain that landlords, most of them in Sobom, have connected their septic tanks to roadside gutters. Immaculate Fogwe completes the story.
Inhabitants of Sobom in the Douala 3 subdivision say they are fed up with the pungent smell emanating from gutters. They say the unhealthy situation has been provoked by some inhabitants who have connected their septic tanks to the gutters. I used to sell food in front of my house, but due to the pungent smell, I stopped selling. It is a terrible situation.
qui sont même dans le quartier passent par. C'est une cité que le monsieur l'a fait.
A man has built his cité in the neighborhood. Knowing fully well that his septic tank is shallow, he preferred using pipes to connect his septic tank to the gutters. Every day, we are scared because our children tend to play around these gutters. The accused landlord in his 50s accepts all the allegations levied against him, but says he's not the only one doing so. It is on my land and my entry. I don't know why they are complaining. Almost all of them have channeled their septic tanks to gutters, but I am the only one they are talking about. An orthodox practice condemned by hygiene and sanitation experts in Cameroon. These persons are exposed to all sorts of water and airborne diseases. Reacting to their cry, officials of hygiene and sanitation of the Douala 3 subdivision sent their boys to the site for disinfection. The population say they are expecting concrete actions to be taken by the council.
And just to mention that works to clean up the locality of Subum have already begun. And now we take you to the northern parts of the country. The senior divisional officer for the Diamare, Jean-Marc Etoa Barga, visited some schools in his area of jurisdiction, and during his visit, the SEO schools their children on the importance of always keeping their school environment clean. Let's have more with our reporters Mandy and Gabriel.
A surprise visit of the senior divisional officer of the Diamare in two main colleges found within his zone of jurisdiction, the Government Bilingual College in Domayo and Lycée Classique et Moderne of Marua. Accompanied by the elements of the forces of law and order, the team of Jean-Marc Ekwabaga will take time first to advise the students. It's prohibited for you to come to school with red lips, telephones, tramol and sachet of whiskies. You are in school to learn and be sure of a better future. And that is why you have teachers around to guide you to become somebody in future. A search that was carried out by the senior divisional officer enabled them to seize caps belonging to the forces of law and order found in the bag of a student, alongside phones worth millions of francs CFA used by the students. We saw students who had telephones which are very expensive. Every day we check these students before they get into the campus, but we are surprised that they still manage to smuggle unwanted things into the classrooms. At Government Bilingual High School Domayo and Lycée Classique et Moderne of Marua, the team of the senior divisional officer saw dangerous weapons like knives and razor blades in the bags of students. The principal of Lycée Classique and Moderne of Marua say they ensure to instill in their students good morals. In our school, every start of the year, we have a gathering bringing all of our students together. This is to tell the students about the do's and the don'ts of the school. Any parent who notices a change in the habit of his child should come and report to us. In the course of the operation, some 3 people were arrested for encouraging students who stay away from lectures to smoke shisha. The equipment used in smoking shisha and flavors were also taken away by the senior divisional officer's team. We noticed that the society is changing, with students becoming much aggressive. We don't know the origin of all of this, but in our present society, where hard drugs circulate easily, we needed to come to the schools to help the teachers to remove such hard drugs in our school milieu. The senior divisional officer of the Diamare says the exercise is just the beginning, as many of such exercises will be carried out in future.
And the National Institute of Statistics has said that inflation remains sustained in the of September in Cameroon. The revelation was made in a report published today, and the report adds that inflation is due to high food prices. As Fari Armstrong Sanda tells us in the report is coming next.
According to the National Institute for Statistics, inflation continued to rise by 4.8% in the month of September 2022, and inflation driven by food prices which have increased by 10% over the past 12 months. Compared to the previous month, the general level of prices increased by 0.4% in September 2022, a sharp contrast to September 2021, where prices rose by 7.6%. On an average, the National Institute for Statistics says prices rose by 4.8% over the past 12 months, an inflation rate which lies far above the Central African Economic and Monetary Community threshold of 3%. The National Institute for Statistics says the underlying inflation rate, which does not take into account the prices of petroleum products and domestic cooking gas in particular, stood at 4.3%. The report, data and statistics focused on the political capital city Yaoundé and the economic capital city Douala.
We take you to the seaside resort town of Limbe to meet David Sidmaimo, who tells us that the Ministry of Justice has created a customary court in Batoke. Batoke is a locality situated on the outskirts of Limbe. That court is dedicated or is supposed to resolve inheritance and other traditional cases. Let's now have more with David Sidmaimo.
To better reduce the numerous minor civil offences brought to the police stations and gendarmerie brigades in Limbe, the Minister of Justice and Keeper of the Seal has activated another customary court in Limbe, the Batoke Customary Court under the Batoke Chiefdom, after that of Limbe Central under the Paramount Chief.
To equally reduce the load of the court and even the forces of law and order, we're going to reduce their assignment.
The Batoke Customary Court, just as that of Limbe Central, according to Limbe Deputy State Council, has as mandate to assist the judiciary in solving minor civil offences and traditional related issues.
You know, the Customary Court is competent to try some matter like inheritance, civil matters, cases of witchcraft, tradition, the respect of cultural customary value. That is the area of competence.
The President, Chief Otto, says the team selected is up to the task.
With the nature of the population which I'm going to serve, I think I'm going to liaise with most of my colleagues too, who are from other cultural background, so that if matters come that concerns their people, they are going to advise me on what to do.
Squeeze on possible conflict the two customary courts may have with the various traditional councils of each village, Chief Henry Fonderson says the law is the law and rights of clients shall be respected.
All of us are guided by the same laws. You know, where a chiefdom might not be able to resolve, parties have the right to go to customary court. And where the customary court does not resolve, they have the right to appeal, you know, to a higher court. So there's no clash.
The Batoke Customary Court that shall cover Limbe 2 and West Coast Subdivision respectively, it is expected shall bring peace among the people of Limbe 2 and West Coast, as unnecessary security detention shall be reduced.
And we told you in our previous newscast that some Cameroonians were forcefully repatriated from neighboring Equatorial Guinea, and an international relations expert has condemned the forceful repatriation of Cameroonians from Equatorial Guinea, which is another African country. Shune Siaka says repatriating Cameroonians or Africans forcefully from another African country kills the bond of Pan-Africanism. Let's now have more of his reaction with our reporter Innocent Aze.
Reacting to the vast control operation and expulsion of foreigners, including Cameroonians, in Equatorial Guinea since October 20, the Cameroonian Consul General in Bata, Equatorial Guinea, said it is an unquestionable decision of any sovereign state. Cameroon's Shune Siaka, with a mastery of foreign relations, terms it controversial.
As a matter of fact, it's a very controversial decision because it comes to to contradict the promotion of Pan-Africanism, that the ideals of Pan-Africanism that we want to promote and promulgate. And Cameroon having bilateral relations with Equatorial Guinea doesn't stop the diplomatic instances of Equatorial Guinea to take drastic decisions like that, because the world today is governed by geopolitical strategy. And considering that Africa needs to define its own geopolitical strategy, it becomes detrimental to the solid growth of African nations, because African nations cannot emerge as one. We must emerge as a bloc, because geopolitical strategy grows today beyond individual nations. They work in blocks. You see the US-UK bloc, you see the European Union bloc, you see the Russia-Chinese bloc. Africa needs to define its own geopolitical strategy and grow as a bloc.
While appraising the quick measure taken by the government of Cameroon, he criticizes the manner in which the repatriation was being done.
To be honest, to call a spade, I have seen in the social media Cameroonians who have resident permit, they branch their passports, they are legally settled in Equatorial Guinea, but they were being exposed. And then when you want to export somebody, make sure you protect the person's life and you protect their property. But you know that there was looting in the process. They loot their properties and then they send them out of the country. You can give a period of grace for people who live in your country to be able to legalize themselves. And if it was a case whereby they asked them to legalize themselves and they didn't do so, okay, it's normal, because nobody is above the law.
Shune Siaka cautions Cameroonians in Equatorial Guinea who are escaping the safe expulsion, noting it will be similar to the common parlance, jumping from a frying pan into fire.
I think that in that case they will have to face the laws of the land in which they stay, because Cameroon is a state of law, and I think Equatorial Guinea as well is a state of law. But the head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya, has put at the disposition of all Cameroonians resident in Equatorial Guinea who are willing to come back. He has put at their disposition transportation of their property and themselves and their families to come back to Cameroon safely. I think Cameroon is a land of milk and honey. If they are not accepted there, they can come back home, for home sweet home.
The foreign relations expert says whatever milk or honey quality Cameroonians are looking for in Equatorial Guinea, their nation Cameroon can provide once indetermination suit.
And the international relations expert further blames that forceful repatriation on a weak African Union. He adds that Africa as a continent can come together to form a strong bloc to resist foreign influence. Let's now listen to Shune Siaka once again in this extract.
What's happening in Equatorial Guinea today is a big blow to the African Union. You know, the African Union, as I say, I always call them a toothless bulldog. What's the role played by the African Union in uniting and strengthening African institutions? They are just there and doing nothing. And I expected that Musa Faki would have reacted to this, but he is very silent, because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. You know, imperialists and neo-colonialists are not interested in seeing a strong African institution. And so the African Union, being a puppet to the West, being a puppet to the European Union, being a puppet to the United Nations, because almost 90% of their budget is funded by these institutions, and that makes the African Union very weak. And in that case, Africa remains fragile, and our fragility works in favor of the Western nations. The African Union needs to redefine its strategy. Redefining the strategy in trying to strengthen African nations rather than weakening them. Redefining the African strategy by following the policy of Muammar Gaddafi. You know, Muammar Gaddafi decided to come up with the with an African state, the United States of Africa, but the imperialists and the neo-colonialists schemed and murdered him, because they knew that what he wanted to do to strengthen the African financial system, strengthen the African governance system, strengthen the African cultural system. By so doing, it will create a semi-independent African nation, and that will be a bloc that will be able to combat the Western bloc. And by so doing, they murdered him. I think that if we stood behind Gaddafi, we would have had a stronger Africa, and we have to devise other strategies and stratagems to strengthen Africa and make it stronger, because it is unacceptable unacceptable that Africans will be driven away out of African land. It is unacceptable.
And the United Nations is poised at ensuring that human rights in general are respected, especially the rights of the minority groups of persons through the media. It has assembled, as the UN has assembled journalists from 4 regions of the littoral region to school them on minority rights reporting. Let's now have more with Staffman Babila Jonathan.
Human rights defenders, national and international rights organizations have been raising concerns over increasing gross human rights violations in Cameroon. The problem is more critical in the crisis-hit northwest, southwest, and far north regions. Security and defense forces and the judiciary have been accused several times and in some cases found guilty of violations including extrajudicial killings, torture, destruction of properties, fair trial, illegal arrest and incommunicado detention, and fair trial violations. Conflict analysts highlight the violations of minority rights as one of the causes of the prevailing situation, particularly in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon.
After 5 years, we can still notice that peace and stability is not yet back. The rights of the population are not respected. The minority group have the feeling that they have been abandoned. Actors have to go back to the drawing board and come up with solutions to resolve the crisis.
Thus, the United Nations human rights involvement in effort to ensure and enhance the respect of minority rights. This is why the human rights arm of the United Nations is training journalists from the northwest, southwest, littoral and central regions of Cameroon in a 2-day workshop in Douala on reporting linguistic and other forms of minority right issues.
The respect of minority rights can contribute to sustainable development and to minority coexistence and diversity. But also the non-respect of minority rights can contribute and exacerbate conflicts. So we're trying to train them on what minority rights are, but we're also hoping to learn from them and hear from them on their best practices on reporting on minority issues.
Besides reporting violations, the United Nations Human Rights wants to enhance positive minority stories in view of changing mindsets necessary for a more diverse and peaceful society.
Now we take you out of our national frontiers first in Burkina Faso, where the new government says they are poised to ensure that the territorial boundaries of Burkina Faso are being respected. And in Tanzania, fire has been reignited in the highest mountain, or the highest mountain of the world, which is Mount Kilimanjaro. And in Malawi, the president has fired the Minister of Agriculture in that country. Let's now have more for our foreign page roundup with Mala Glory.
Burkina Faso's new government has declared its top priority would be to secure the nation's territory after the latest coup to rock the jihadist-turned Sahel state. A UN envoy warned in New York that around 4.9 million of the population needs urgent aid. And in Tanzania, a wildfire that officials thought was under control on Africa's highest peak, Mount Kilimanjaro, has reignited. The blaze began near Karanga, a site used by climbers ascending the famous peak at about 4,000 meters altitude. The latest blaze at the mountain comes 2 years after another fire raged for a week in October 2020 across 95 square kilometers. And in Malawi, President Lazarus Chakwera fired Agricultural Minister Lubin Lowe and his deputy to immediate effect for incompetence and gross negligence.
I have relieved the Minister of Agriculture and his deputy of their posts in my cabinet with immediate effect.
The president outlined in details the alleged fraud committed in the ministry, including how a British agent was used to secure fertilizer for the program but was not properly vetted.
Malawians deserve results, and they elected me to deliver those results. and I will see to it that those results are delivered with or without you, because I'm not here to serve a party or a minister or an alliance. I am here to serve Malawians.
And viewers, that was what we put together for you on this edition of the news. Thank you so much for always according us your time, and have a blessed evening in the company of programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.